Thank you to those of you coming to us from Eventbrite. We are Alma La Vida. We are a life, health and wellness, leadership, and career coaching company. And my name is Justice, and I'm one of the relationship strategists here on the team. And what that means is when you want to have a conversation to kind of get the ball rolling with coaching, you have a half-hour complimentary conversation with someone on my team. And during that time, we're going to ask you deeper questions to get to know more about what brought you here, what your goals are. And then throughout that time, we're going to end up pairing you up with one or multiple of the coaches on our team that we feel are most appropriately suited to help you accomplish the goals that you shared with us. So with that being said, if anyone has anything front of mind that they would like to share, I'm going to go ahead and post my link to my calendar. That is first come, first serve. So we recommend get in there as fast as you can. And then anybody who comes to us from a webinar event gets your first session free. So something to keep in mind with your budgeting or anything like that. With that being said, Lisa, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Justin. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for joining me today for this webinar about workplace bullying, or as I like to say, working with assholes. This webinar is very interactive, so I hope throughout the webinar that you will add information, thoughts, suggestions, or the number one, and we'll talk about that in a moment in the chat. As we're waiting for other people to hop on, if you've ever dealt with a workplace bully, would you put a number one in the chat? And Justice, I'm going to rely on you to give me an idea if a lot of people are putting ones or a few people or no one at all. How does that sound?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of ones coming through right now.
Okay. Also, before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to you, Justin, and thank you so much for being my partner today. I think Jillian is also here as well, and these are two phenomenal people, and they're going to help us present a great experience for you today. So thank you all for being here, and let's get started. So there we go. My name is Lisa Alley, and I am a certified career coach with Alma La Vida. And I work with clients who are looking to invest in their career. I've also owned a staffing and recruiting firm for about 10 years, and I've worked in the nonprofit sector. So I have a lot of experience in a lot of different industries. The subject of bullying is a real hot button for me because as a recruiter, most of the professionals that came to me seeking employment were coming from very toxic situations. And as a recruiter, in order for me to represent them and help them obtain employment, we really spent a lot of time focusing on their successes and boosting their confidence. Because when you're looking for a job, mindset is everything, especially positive mindset. Now, as a career coach, a majority of my clients really are coming for support and some help in overcoming perhaps limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, so they can either be very successful in developing their career or looking for other opportunities. So we spend a lot of time working through having come from a toxic work environment, working with hostile coworkers, or just difficult or demanding bosses. And again, some of my clients really want to grow in their career, so they want to learn leadership skills and how to work with cross-functional teams and be an ally and advocate for their coworkers and colleagues. So that's what I do here. So let's review our discussion topics today. We're going to define what actually is a workplace bully. We're going to talk about the different types. We're going to identify some notorious difficult bosses. We're going to take a look at how you can overcome working with bullies. So I'm going to put my coach's cap on, and I'm going to give you some thoughts, suggestions, tips, and advice. And then we're going to talk about perhaps you might be a bully and you don't know it. And again, as a coach, I'm going to walk you through some leadership tips and so you can overcome that if you find yourself doing having some of the attributes that we're talking about. And then I'm going to be really excited to answer your questions for you. So are you ready? Let's get started. So according to the Workplace Bullying Institute, called WBI, and it's a website. And it's a great resource when you're dealing with workplace bullying. The organization defines workplace bullying as repeated health-harming mistreatment of one or more persons, the targets, or sometimes called the victims, by one or more perpetrators, which are the bullies. The offender usually uses verbal and sometimes physical abuse to intimidate, threaten, or humiliate people, and they interfere with the ability to get the work done. So based on that premise, that's how we're going to define these bullies moving forward. But there are some notorious workplace bullies that I want to point out to you, so you realize you're not alone, and bullies are at every level of an organization. And the first bad boss or bully is on my left, and that's Meg Whitman. And Meg was really, really a component to the transformation of eBay back about a decade or two ago and turning it into a billion-dollar business. She was an asshole. In fact, one of her two biggest moments were one when she shoved an executive in a conference room, which resulted in a $200,000 settlement. And the other is when she threw a phone at an executive because she just didn't like what they were saying to her. And she was just known overall as a rageaholic who swore and attacked her staff. The next person we have, and that many of us recognize, is James Cameron, right? He's the director for the Titanic and Avatar, but he would drive people crazy, and he would expect long hours, he would humiliate, he would have harsh criticism. In fact, one time he was so angry with a staffer that he took their cell phone and used a nail stapler and stapled a nail gun and stapled the cell phone to the wall. So I'm not quite sure how he did that, but yeah, he was pretty intense. The third person that is a notorious bully is Sheila Jackson Lee, and she's known as the meanest member of Congress. She ran through about 11 chiefs of staff in a really short period of time, and she's known for screaming and yelling and calling her staff just a bunch of morons to their face. The last person I'm going to identify as a really bad boss or bully is Charles Ergen. And Charlie, he co-founded the Dish Network. Many of us have heard about that company. And he was really tough. In fact, nobody wanted to meet for meetings, right? We are in a meeting society, but no one wanted to go to meetings because he would walk in and threaten to fire everybody in the meeting. And if employees traveled for work, and it didn't matter what level of employee you were, and if you tipped over 15% when you were traveling, you were expected to pay back anything over 15% to the company. So not only was he difficult to work for, he was pretty miserly as well. So let's talk about the kind of bullies that you may come in contact with, because we've discussed the definition, right? We've identified some pretty horrible bosses, but let's chat about some of these people that have really interfered with your employment or made you feel not so great about yourself. Because most bullies not only wreak havoc with your confidence, they're also master manipulators, and they're really great at gaslighting. So when you complain or when you push back, a lot of times you'll hear, oh, there's nothing wrong. You're overreacting. You're being way too sensitive, or you're just really immature. Come on, grow up. So even though we're going to point out a lot of different kinds of bullies, just remember that there are many, many kinds of bullies. These are just a few of the most common, and they tend to overlap in their bullying in terms of their personalities. So let's take a look at some of these really common bullying behaviors. The first one, this is the big mouth. They yell, they're loud, they're insulting and obnoxious. And their goal is to really humiliate you and embarrass you, especially when it's in front of your colleagues or your boss. They tend to be really unreasonable, and they are ready to attack and criticize you if you don't agree with them. So not only are you losing your confidence, you're feeling really bad about yourself, the company also loses the opportunity to innovate, right? Because everyone is afraid to voice your opinion because you know you're going to be criticized, put down, and humiliated. So has anyone ever experienced this type of bully? And if so, could you put a 1 in the chat box? And Justin, are we seeing any 1s in there?
A bunch of them.
Okay. So this is a common kind of bully. It's the first one I wanted to present because so many people work with them. The backstabber. This person is your best friend. They tell you how great you are. They build you up, and they love to hear about your problems. They really love to ask you questions about coworkers or your direct reports, and then they're going to turn around and they're going to spread gossip or malicious rumors. They tend to make false allegations. They embellish what you say about others, so your colleagues don't like you. They may take credit for your ideas and or sabotage your work. And this is a really common bullying person who managers have to deal with. So a lot of times these backstabbers will come, get some information from their boss, and then go back and tell everybody the boss is complaining about them. And they really cause a lot of toxicity in the group. Has anyone ever experienced a backstabber at work? I know I have. So if I could, I would put 1 in the chat. And I see a lot of people putting a lot of numbers changing. Is that true, Justice?
Yes, I think we have more backstabbers than the previous one.
Unfortunately, I can understand that. So let's move on. Let's see what other kind of bullies most of us will come in contact with if we haven't already. The critic. They criticize everything you do, and they're not necessarily a boss. A lot of times they're your colleagues, but they're in competition with you, and they love to correct you in front of others. Everything about you and your work is negative, and they're really eager to always point out even the smallest mistake, typo, or grammatical error. They love to really focus on your flaws. And so what the critic does is they really, really lower your confidence level, and you really start to feel that you're incompetent and you're embarrassed and you're humiliated. And that may not be what they're specifically wanting to do, but that's the result of working with a critical person. Now, has anyone ever dealt with a critic at work? I don't know, Justice, I see some 1s. What are you seeing?
I do too, lots of 1s.
Okay. Should we keep going? Talk about some other bullies? Let's do that. So the finger pointer. And Justice, I could put like 10 1s for myself on this. I don't know about you all out there, but I have absolutely worked with a finger pointer. They're never at fault, but they always know who is. And they actually create a blame culture. So as a result, everybody's afraid to say anything because they're going to be held responsible and they're going to be blamed for any mistake. They're also the office tattletale. They always like to tell the boss who did what. And as a boss, remember when I initially told you about myself that I owned a staffing agency, I had a really great producer who was the biggest tattletale. And she would go out to lunch with her colleagues and they would talk about everything. And she would literally run into my office after lunch and tell me how they criticized my outfit, my hair, my makeup, what I said that day, to the point where I just told her, you know what, unless someone is quitting or they've done something where they need to be fired, I don't even want to know about it. Don't tell me, just don't. So they like to cause a lot of conflict between the boss and colleagues. And so they can cause a lot of unnecessary angst. And I don't know about you, but I would love to see how many people have dealt with a finger pointer and would not take responsibility and blame you for what went on in the office? Am I the only one with a bunch of ones? Justice?
You are not. You are
Okay.
not.
And Justice, you haven't said anything. Have you ever experienced any of these bullies so far?
The finger pointer for sure.
Okay, good, good. Justice, it looks like we're not alone. What do you think?
Nope. We have got people from all over here that are agreeing with us.
Okay, unfortunately, that's true. Okay, so let's move on. The attention seeker. They tend to be very insecure, and no matter what their age is, they're really immature. And they always want to be the center of attention. They resent when others are recognized in a really positive manner, and their lives are filled with drama. That's all you probably hear from them is drama. And that's where they can gain sympathy, they manipulate or control. And they're usually that person that always is mad at least at one person in the office. So put a 1 in the chat box if you've ever dealt with an attention seeker. I don't think we have as many ones on this one. What do you think, Justice?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so probably the most destructive is the bully who's the silent attacker. And it's really not what they say, it's what they do or what they don't do. They refuse to speak to you in a meeting or in front of others. They ignore you and they act as if you don't exist, that they completely give you the cold shoulder. They tend to not copy you in on really important emails. They don't invite you to meetings, or they don't respond timely to your emails so you can be kept in the loop. They deliberately withhold information that would enable you to do your job well or even better. I've unfortunately had to deal with a silent attacker. They made my job extremely difficult to succeed in. And I'm just wondering, has anyone else dealt with this kind of bully, this kind of silent bully? Doesn't look as many people have. What do you think, Justice?
Not as many, but they're still out there.
Okay, unfortunately true. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, I have to say, Justice, I need a lot of 1s in the chat for this one. The know-it-all. They know how to do everything, and they tell you how to do everything, even if you've already know, or you've actually even created the process or the rule, they'll still tell you how to do it. They tend to redo your work because it just wasn't up to their standards. They believe they are the go-to person for everything and should be involved in all decisions, even if they're really not involved with the project. They can be obnoxious. They have really strong opinions, and they only do things their way because it's the best way. And as a manager, especially if you're newly promoted or you're been newly hired into a position, you'll likely hear from them, that's not the way we do things here, or that's not how we've done it in the past. Because, well, they know all and their way is the best way. So how many people have worked with a know-it-all? I don't know, how's it looking, Justice? Has anyone else out there besides me worked with one?
I was going to say, it looks like this one needs no introduction and is taking the cake right now.
So, you know, we have to laugh, right? Because sometimes it is funny, even when it's difficult and challenging. We've reviewed a lot of different kind of bullies here. And again, they vary in type and they also vary in toxicity, right? Some are low level irritation and some really negatively impact your work environment. So why does workplace bullying matter? Why is it an issue? If you don't like, you know, the people that you're working with, just quit or stop complaining. Well, it's much more than that. And I think that I'm probably talking to some people out there that like data. So let's look at the statistics. About 48.6 million Americans are bullied at work. That's an awful lot of people. And interestingly, 43.2% is the bullying rate for those working remotely. And interestingly with this working remotely part, that the bullying occurs more during a virtual meeting and less through an email. And I'd love to know what people think about that. Do you experience bullying remotely? And if so, is it during a virtual meeting? And then women bullies target other women twice as much as they bully other men. And then 52% are non-management employees, 40% are managers. And then if you take the bullied individuals and include their witnesses, 49% of the workforce are affected. And that's about 79.3 million workers. That's a lot of people. And so when we're looking at this data and statistics, what we're really seeing is that workplace bullying significantly negatively impacts an organization. It creates higher absenteeism. It reduces productivity. It creates higher turnover and increased legal issues. So it's just not about you. And I would love for anyone who thinks this comment is true to put a 1 in the chat. Justice, what are we seeing? Do we see some people who agree with this statement?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so let's move on. So now I'm going to put my coaching hat on, and we're going to talk about how to deal with workplace harassment, because you have every right to succeed in a positive, supportive culture. So don't give your coworkers or that really demanding boss the power to make you miserable. I'm going to help you today to stand up for yourself and to try to resolve the issue. So let's start with the action that you can take. And the first one is to actually just minimize the interaction. And how you can do this is you can say things like, you know what, I can't talk right now, or I'm busy right now, let's talk later. Let's try to take this conversation to a place where it's more productive. Or let's take a break and come back to this discussion later. So what you're doing is you're minimizing the contact, the interaction, and you're deciding on how you're going to pursue this situation on your terms, not on somebody else's. You are now taking control. Another way to address the behavior is to come out and talk to the bully. First of all, describe the behavior that you're seeing the bully exhibit, such as, you know what, you're not including me on emails, or you're taking credit for my report. And tell the person how it's affecting your work and the organization, not how it's affecting you personally. So for example, you know what, when I'm not looped in on important information and emails, it's costing the company time and money, and we're not going to meet our deadline. Or when you don't put my name on a report, then when people have questions, they don't know who to contact to get some context or additional information. And then tell them that when you address the behavior, it can't continue. You can no longer not include me on emails because I need to be in the know of what's going on with this project. Or you can no longer keep my name off of a report because my information is pertinent to getting something completed and finished. So I expect this from now on. And then tell them if it doesn't happen again, what next steps you're going to take. That's how you can address the behavior straight on directly to the bully. And if that doesn't work, there are some resolution tactics you can use that might help you get through to them so you can solve the conflict on your own without moving forward to more of an official capacity. And so conflict resolution tactics are something we spend a lot of time with, and it's not something that can be done very quickly, but I'm going to give you some tactics today that I think can really help. And one is to create an environment that is really conducive to successful conflict resolution. And what does that mean? That really means don't stand up in a meeting and call the person out and want to deal with it right then, because you're not going to get anywhere. So again, pick a time and place that's going to work for you, and then address it, because that's where you're going to really move the needle on the issue. And then determine what kind of outcomes you want as a result. So not reacting immediately to somebody's behavior is a good tactic, right? Think about what you want to have as a result. I really want to be included on emails. I really want my name to be on that report. That's what my goal is. And then try to understand an opposing view. Maybe they'll tell you that I wasn't on that email because there are so many meetings and they have so many people already included that they just didn't think that I was a necessary addition. Or maybe they felt that the amount of information that I provided for the report wasn't necessary then to include my name. And then focus in on the issue, not the personalities. This is affecting the organization. This is affecting the work product, not, please do not say, you always do that. You never include me on emails. I'm always out of the loop. I'm never included on reports. I'm always left off and getting recognition. That puts people obviously on the defensive, and you're not going to get as far in finding a resolution. And then discuss potential solutions. I recommend we do this, and see what they recommend. And you may not agree with the outcome entirely, but if you can compromise and get to a resolution, then everybody succeeds. And then you also, if you've tried to come to a conclusion, you've addressed the behavior, you've minimized the interaction, and you are still having issues with this person or people, then you can document the date, the time, the details of the incident, and also whether there were any witnesses. And quite frankly, when I ran an organization and people would come to me and complain about their coworker, and if you're, if you listen to my past story about the tattletale, you're probably not surprised that that person was complained about, and people wanted to come to me and have me help them find resolution. My first instinct was to always say, can you try to work it out with them on your own? And I don't think that's necessarily unusual for a manager to say. However, the one time someone came to me with times, dates, incidents, and who was present during that time, I absolutely took note, and I dealt with it at the time immediately, because this person was serious, and I took it very seriously. So document everything and go to your manager. And you know what? Some managers are great, and they're going to advocate for you and try to come help you find a resolution. Some aren't. And so then you may have to go to HR. And if you do, just make sure that you've looked in the employee handbook and read about how HR investigations are, accomplished, and when you make a formal complaint and what the steps are, just so you have an idea of what you're getting into. I have some clients that I work with on this all the time. We also have other really experienced Alma La Vida coaches that came from a corporate HR background, and they can really help clients deal with very complex issues, so where they can get a really positive resolution. So, if you've minimized interaction, you've addressed the behavior, you've tried to, find a resolution, you've documented, you've gone to HR, unfortunately, you might have to quit, because nothing is more important than your mental and physical health. And when that starts to become an issue, you need to move on and do what's best for you. So we've talked a lot about how bullies affect you and what, the definition. We've named some kind of bullying behaviors. We've talked about how you can maybe mitigate the issue with bullies. Let's talk about something. Are you a workplace bully? Do you gossip about your coworkers or your boss? And come on, we've all done it a little bit. I have to admit, I've done it too, way back, but I've done it. Have you lost your temper because you were really passionate about a project or something that you were working on? Raised your voice, argued with people, maybe slammed a door. Do you like to give your coworkers nicknames such as, hey, dummy, that was a really smart move? Or, You're so ditzy. Do you even know what day it is? You're such a nerd. Or, hey, big girl. Someone said to somebody at a place I worked, there were a lot of donuts in the break room and they're all gone. Inferring that that person ate a few, more than a few donuts. Have you made someone cry for any reason? Have you excluded, snubbed, or ignored someone? Have you been that silent attacker? Have you pranked a coworker? Have you put balloons in their office, put saran wrap across their door? Or, hey, this is hilarious. Tell them that their biggest client fired them, but it was just a joke. It's supposed to be funny. It's not. Have you intentionally set unrealistic goals or expectations? I had an executive director at a nonprofit, and because we ran a lean organization, she would give a lot of work to people right before they went on vacation, and would say to everyone at any time right before vacation, if you can't get this work finished, you're not going to be able to go. Well, of course, people were going to go on their vacation, but they were so angry about it that it created unnecessary ill will. And that's really, in effect, bullying people. So I'm not going to ask you to put a 1 in the chat if you've bullied people before, if you've exhibited any of this behavior, but it's hard being a manager, it's hard being a colleague. And so you really have to look at how you can be an influencer instead of an asshole. And I'm going to put my cap back on again and give you some coaching ideas and thoughts and suggestions, how you can be a productive person where people want to talk to you, they want your input, and they want you to grow with them instead of being this person that everyone ignores or fears. So, how to be a leader and not an asshole. And you don't have to have a title to be a leader. And the first is to focus on your own behavior. How do you treat other people? How do they perceive you? And then how do you add value to your organization and to the people around you and to your boss? Do you add value? If not, how can you turn that around? And then practice self-awareness. You may think you're really funny with jokes, but how are other people taking your jokes? Are you pranking them because you want attention, but they're not finding it funny? How are you perceived? And you know what? It's entirely okay to ask your colleagues the same question. How would you describe me? And if you work with a coach, we ask that a lot. How would other people describe you? How would your colleagues, how would your family and friends describe you? That helps you promote or understand who you are and be more self-aware. Adopt a growth mindset, not only for you, because you probably want to grow and thrive and be promoted, but also how can you promote growth in others and grow together as a team? And then how can you support and understand each other and work together to create a project or to move or to innovate? And how do you think strategically? And how does that involve other people? And then how to be innovative. And being innovative also means being very inclusive, because when you listen to other people's ideas, thoughts, and suggestions, that's how you can really grow and prevent groupthink and create new processes, procedures, and make the company better. So we've talked a lot about bullying, how to work with a bully, how not to be a bully. And if you feel that you exhibit these attributes that are on the screen now, put a 1 in the chat and also congratulate yourself for really being already a very intuitive leader and positive person within your organization. We've covered so much today. Does anybody have any questions? I am open and I'm happy to share any knowledge and experience that I have. And Justin, I'm going to rely on you because I don't have my chat open. Could you possibly read some questions if anybody has any?
Yes, absolutely. There's 2 so far in the chat right now. I see one says, so what if you are HR and the bully is your boss?
You take the same tactics, right? You minimize interaction, you address behavior directly, maybe go above their position and talk to somebody else. That's not uncommon. And I've actually heard people tell me that sometimes HR can be a really difficult place to work for that, exactly that reason.
Another one we have says, how can you find witnesses if it's a clique of bullies on a team?
So that's where you really become strategic, right? Most of the time, bullies are not going to be promote bad behavior just once. So you can tell people, you know what, I'm really having a problem with this person. Would you mind if you see any behavior, you know, would you be a witness in case I have to go to HR? And just ask them, just maybe to be on the lookout. Because eventually that bully will behave in a negative way in the future.
We have one says, what about when enthusiasm, wanting to be an asset to the team, is perceived by others as an infringement?
Well, I think that goes back to, that's a really good question. That goes back to self-awareness and maybe asking your coworkers how they're perceiving your excitement and your enthusiasm and what they would recommend and suggest. And then
Barbara, is yours a question or a statement? I'm not 100% sure. And then if anyone else wants to come off of you and ask a question, that would be more than welcome that. Ashley, feel free to come off mute.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Lisa, I just had a question. What sort of recommendations do you have towards responding to someone who's giving you the cold shoulder, more than behavior that's more than just them perhaps enforcing boundaries, but it seems like an intentional cold shoulder?
So, you know, Ashley, the one thing that you can do is really address it with that person outside of anybody else being around and just saying, you know what, I feel like you're giving me the cold shoulder. Did something occur that I can address? Or, you know, is there anything going on that I can help you with? You know, sometimes we always assume that it's us, but sometimes people are going through their own kind of personal issue and they don't even recognize that how they appear to others may be, you know, negative. So it may not have anything to do with you. So, you know, would you feel comfortable, Ashley, asking this person, you know, would you mind if we chatted? I've noticed that you have been very silent. You really haven't been communicative with me. Is there anything we can do about it? Or is there anything you want to talk about? How would you feel about that?
So I love vulnerability, and I think, you know, we practice it here, pretty intentionally, just in the work that we do. I have asked this particular person, they have admitted it is a cold shoulder. And so, you know, I love a good metaphor. And so we even have kind of a joke that they're shutting the door, kind of the door that comes down at, you know, a mall shop at the end of the day. But they have not communicated the reason why. And even when I've communicated that it's cruel and it eliminates communication and does not create a culture of solution, resolving issues. So I feel like I've exhausted my efforts to keep that door open.
So if you said to her, I'm assuming it's a woman, but if you said to them, you know, giving me the cold shoulder or ignoring me makes me feel like there's an issue between us and it's really hindering my ability to get my job done, if it is, or for me to work with you on projects, what can we do to resolve this? What do you think she might say or they might say?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's actually not a woman, surprisingly.
Okay. I thought you said she, so I apologize. I should
and
have
I
used they.
and I might have, I'm not sure, but yeah, that's you know, especially when it comes to work, I think all options are on the table to keep lines of communication open. So that's definitely worth pursuing and making, like, creating a space. I think I'll use an I statement. I can help create a space where they're also bringing solutions and ideas to the table, and it's not just one-sided,
Mm-hmm.
to create buy-in, as we say.
Yes, because, you know, if you can try to come up with a resolution, right, when you state that this is, you know, not how it's making you feel, but how it's, you know, affecting work and affecting the company, right? You keep it more objective rather than subjective. And then maybe ask them for what their solution might be to it. And maybe they'll say, you know, I've got things going on at home, or, you know, I'm just really focused on work. And then maybe the resolution is that when this person's behaving that way, you just leave them alone.
Cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate
Mhm.
that.
Okay.
Thank you for asking the question, Ashley. Okay, we have another hand raised from Designated Black. Would you like to come off mute?
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for having this platform because it's so much needed. Um, Similar to Ashley's situation, I've gone through something similar. Uh, However, the person is the supervisor who has been giving the cold shoulder, in fact, blocking me from information that I need in order to do my job. So, um, although I would agree with yes, you know, to leave them alone, unfortunately, I can't because
Right.
I'm dependent on her to get the information I need in order to do my job. And so there's that one aspect. I did go and ask her if there was something going on that I should know about, because I noticed that there was a change in communication and just a change in how I'm being treated, and it's interfering with my work. And she went into a lot of gaslighting, claiming that I'm the problem, um, and also making false allegations, claiming that I've done things that I haven't done, or things that I haven't said. Um, what I did was I made sure to document document the occurrences, um, so that when it got to the point where it was just too unbearable, I went above her head and spoke to the manager that's her manager. At that point, I thought that the manager above her was going to be helpful. At least what she was saying was seemingly helpful. Um, but I've come to find that it was a lot of lip service. So I went again above the manager's head. And eventually, the executive director was pulled into the mix because ultimately I had requested a meeting to see if there's some kind of resolution to the situation. And I was hoping that it was going to be a more neutral zone. Um, and by that time, the supervisor was already gossiping, and spreading rumors about me that were untrue, which I come to find out later on. And as a result, the meeting was not biased, the meeting was not unbiased, it wasn't neutral. And I just felt at the point that I couldn't really trust anybody there anymore, and ultimately left. Uh, I guess my question is, like, you know, what does one do in that situation? Because I've tried the different steps. The supervisor doesn't want a resolution. I come to find out that the supervisor was in fact threatened by my abilities to do the job more effective than her. Um, which I thought that would have been like being an asset to the team, but based on her own situations or whatever insecurities she have, clearly not. But I just find that it ends in the person who's trying to be motivated and do well is having to leave such a toxic environment. So what does one do in that situation? Because it's a lot to have to financially recover, try and find a job, and get yourself situated again.
I absolutely feel for your situation, and I'm so sorry that you went through that, because it sounds like it was, extremely challenging. So just because we, just on a short amount of time of listening to what you had to say, I think actually you did the right thing. I don't think you were going to change the environment, and it just doesn't sound like it was going to be beneficial to you, your mental health or physical health to continue. And, one thing that you have to think about is when there is a company that is extremely toxic, and when you don't leave, a lot of times people in the industry know that that company is toxic. And if you stay for a long period of time, people are reluctant to hire you, because you then may be a difficult person to work with, and they don't want to bring that type of person into their organization. So leaving and moving on professionally was probably the best thing for you to do, based upon what you just told me. And I'm so sorry you went through that. And actually, one thing that I wanted to say was, when I said that you might have to just leave them alone, I think what I really meant was sometimes you just have to move on, right? Because you can't change their behavior, and try to find a workaround for that person. And really then they're becoming not a bully, but a detriment to the team, and you're trying to get your work done. So and again, I think that you're doing everything right by addressing it. So does anybody else have any questions?
We have one more hand up, that is Mary. Mary, if you want to come off mute first, please.
Hi, I'm Mary. I just turned 60, but I've been a temp employee for a long time. And I think I wonder sometimes if I never fit into their cultures, because I come off as I have too much confidence. I've worked in so many different industries. I've got a lot of knowledge across the board, plus an MBA. So a lot of times the temp positions I'm in are below my, I don't know, how can I say it? I don't mind being a secretary, you name it, I'll do it. I always try to bring a sense of energy and enthusiasm and sharing what I've learned in the past, whether the organization wants it or not. That's the problem. So I kind of get beat up a lot because, for example, one company that was a really growing startup had never heard of, had never heard of, oh, sorry.
So keep going.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
Okay. I was just going to add, I'm the type of person that has worked for example, big companies like Honeywell. I was at corporate offices of Best Buy, but so they have a lot of energy in these companies and organizational knowledge, and like HR might run an employee assistance program or employee activities program. So those are the employee activities in particular is something I was involved in a lot. So I would work for small companies and suggest, hey, why don't we get together and start something? And even if I was full-time and not a temp, it's just that I feel like I always threaten people, and I don't mean to. Am I a bully?
Well, you are showing self-awareness, so probably not. So that's the good news. But so first of all, as a temp, I think that sometimes just because I've been in the industry, you're just not considered part of the group sometimes. And that's just being a temporary, right? Because you could finish the assignment and move on to the next one. So that might be part of it. Right. And maybe changing your mindset a little bit. I don't know. I'm just listening to what you're saying, but perhaps, instead of giving some thoughts and suggestions, ask about, how could I help you better? That servant leadership kind of mentality. What can I do to help you? Or, yeah, I have this great idea, but how would that help the organization? And maybe pursue it, through, this is my idea, and then asking the question. What do you think about that, Mary?
Yeah, I think that, well, to find out like what they want first, for sure, is a good approach. A lot of times they're younger employees. They don't have that breadth. They have no clue what they want. I guess. I don't know.
I think it's really difficult to assimilate into an organization as a temporary unless you've been there for 2 years. But keep trying. And because, are you looking for permanent employment as well, or are you just wanting to do temporary work?
Well, I kind of have been beaten up so badly, I don't feel like I fit anywhere. I have to try to explain why I've been out of the workforce for the last 2 years, taking care of my mother who had Alzheimer's. I mean, just anytime a woman has to return to the workplace after a gap, for whatever reason, we have to come up with a reason. And I feel like, I mean, I just have given up even hoping to find a position that is going to value the experience that I have. I'm a hard worker. I show up. I don't create problems. I just, it's just hard to find that good fit.
You know what, Mary, I understand that. And a lot of my clients that I work with are women going back into the workforce at many different ages. And they've all experienced the same type of situation. So you're not alone. And, just keep looking, because you probably just haven't found the right fit yet. I have a lot of
your coaching help here. You know what I mean? It's like, I would love to sign up for a session with you to take a look at my resume, or take a look at what a little deeper dive down into, and help me focus on what I want.
You let me know. I'm here for you. I'm here for you, because I deal with a lot of women in that situation, and I really I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of diverse clients. So, and this is why I love doing webinars, so I can share my knowledge and thoughts with you. So thank you for participating, Mary. I appreciate it. Does anyone else have any questions?
Thank you so much, Mary. And then real quick, I am going to redrop the link to have a consultation with me, as well as the link to our website, where you can see a little bit more about us as a company, as well as some of the other coaches that we do have on staff. Oops, give me 1 second to post that for you guys. And then additionally, I'm also going to post our YouTube channel link, as well as the Eventbrite link for future events. If anyone wants to attend and register for any of those, we do have a lot of really good events coming up, and we would love to see you at future events. So here are those links for anyone who's interested. And then we do have a couple more questions in the chat we can get through really quick. But do remember to indicate that you are coming to us from a webinar event, so you can get your first session free if anyone has interest in that. So we have a question that says, I have baggage from bad bullying and not sure how to keep it from impacting my future roles and confidence. Any tips on that?
That's just something we kind of have to flesh out, when I work with a client, and there's just not an easy answer for that. But, I've been there. I understand that. It's hard not to take that baggage to the next place, but understand exactly what you want to accomplish in your next role and how you want to get there, and focus on how you can add value to the organization. And think about all of your successes, not the people that you dealt with, because you've moved on, you've moved up. And this is something as a recruiter we worked with a lot as well. Focus on all of the positive attributes you bring, your successes, and how you're going to apply them to your next role. That's about the best way you can do it in a short answer. That's the short answer for you.
And then it looks like we have time for one more. And this one says, I am a super sensitive empath. It is difficult, and I often become the focus of bullying at all levels. How do I keep it professional and maintain my dignity so I can do my very best at work?
So so you're sensitive, and probably because you're a very kind and sensitive person, you know, sometimes bullies take advantage of that. And probably the one thing you can do that would help yourself is to address it straight on, in a kind, nice way that probably is how you present. And that's just, you know what, I'd like to talk to you for a minute, go through the objective reasons why you're having this conversation and how it's affecting work, and then ask them how together you can overcome it. That's about the best, in a short answer. Again, I should say, in a short answer, that's probably the best way to deal with it, because a lot of times, even when you seem like someone who's not overly aggressive, if you address issues with people, even in a nice way, a lot of times they won't bother you as much, because they only focus on the people that aren't going to push back. Does that help?
Thank you so much, Lisa. And it looks as though we're going to run out of time here, but we do appreciate everyone for spending some time here with us on Wednesday. Again, this will be recorded and posted on our YouTube channel if you ever want to go back and watch that, as well as sent out to everyone who did register. Additionally, all the links and anything you will need would be there as well. And we look forward to seeing you at future events. Lisa, do you have any parting words for everybody?
I just want to thank you all so much for attending. I had a good time. I hope you had a great time too. And if I can ever do anything for you, I hope you'll reach out, because you deserve to have a great experience at work. And I wish you all continued success. So thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for your time today, everyone. We look forward to seeing you in the future.